In a dark underworld ruled by fear.
To put your feet up. We come here.
Until a lone assassin.
So how long have you two been together?
Just a few months.
I want you. Piss off my dad, I guess.
As good a reason as any.
And Jason Statham.
Por favor. Juro que voy a hacer todo lo posible para que encuentres a tu mamá.
It's him. He killed you.
Revenge. Get ready for a war.
Your crops, your children, your... I'm empty now.
Colombiana 2 2025. Hello friends, welcome back to my channel friends. This is not a movie, this is a full detail review and fact video about this movie. If you want to know about this movie, then you must like this video, because in today's video we will tell you what is its story, which actors and actresses have worked in this film, the director, producer, cameraman of this film is going to talk about them in detail. We will talk about the post-production, pre-production budget and filming of this film. The starcast of the film will also give details about the supporting cast and production. Guys, if you want to know about this movie, you must watch this video. You will find all the details of this movie in this video. What is the story of this movie? If you like this video, then share it with your friends and subscribe. Our channel Colombiana 2 in 2025 has not been officially announced or confirmed by the original film's producers or studios. Colombiana 2225 brings back the fierce Catalia Resto, portrayed by Zoe Saldana, on another journey of vengeance and justice following the events of the first film, where Catalia took down the men responsible for her parents' death. She now faces an even more dangerous challenge, a deadly syndicate that threatens to destroy everything she holds dear. Plot overview. The story begins with Catalia trying to lead a quieter life. Having partially escaped the violent shadows of her past, she's found a small semblance of peace, living under a new identity in a remote village in South America. However, rumors of a powerful crime syndicate known as the Silver FWNN begin spreading. This syndicate, notorious for trafficking and large-scale corruption, has a reputation for wiping out entire communities that resist them. When the Silver Fund arrives in Calia's village, its enforcers inadvertently bring her back into world she was hoping to leave behind. Key is conflict. The Silver Fund quickly realizes they've made a grave mistake in provoking Catalia, as she is once again drawn into a spiral of vengeance. The villagers rally around her as she becomes their guardian angel and protect her, but Catalia realizes this fight isn't just about one village, it's about something far larger than. Silver Fang has ties with corrupt politicians, international drug trafficking, and even some of her old enemies who have resurfaced to hunt her down. New characters and allies. Catalia encounters a skilled hacker NCO who was once a part of an underground cyber group before being forced into hiding after a run-in with the syndicate. Together they work to expose the syndicate KS activities and weaken its network. Nick brings in an additional level of danger, but also emotional complexity, as he begins to see Catalia as more than just a skilled assassin, and Catalia's struggle between vulnerability and survival becomes a key narrative point. Rising tension as Catalia and Nick move deeper into dismantling them syndicate. They face betrayal, loss, and in increasingly lethal confrontations. Kay's dark past is constantly referenced, testing her resilience as she confronts her own violent tendencies. This is not just a battle against enemies, but against her inner demons, particularly when the syndicate's head, a man known as El Elrin, begins targeting innocent people close to her, forcing Catalia into a corner where no one is safe. Climactic showdown. Their film's climax brings Catalia face to face with El Elrin in an intense showdown at the syndicate's high-tech isolated compound deep in the jungle. Here Catalia has to fight not only to save herself and those she's come to care about, but also to find some form of redemption. The fight is raw and forgiving and shows her full capabilities as she takes down the Syndicate's most elite guards battling for justice and closure. Ending the film ends with Catalia once again alone but at peace, knowing she has avenged those who suffered at the hands of the Silver FWNN. Neek returns to his underground network with a promise that he'll be there if she ever needs him. Catalia, with scars both visible and hidden, walks into the sunset, symbolizing her endless fight for justice and the price of survival. Overall, the sequel maintains the gritty high-stakes action and intense emotional stakes of the original, with an exploration of Catalia's psyche. Colombiana 2 promises to deliver heart-pounding action while diving into questions of loyalty, vengeance, and the cost of a life. Elle and Shadow's plot for Colombiana 2 2025. Colombiana 2 takes us back into the ruthless, high-octane world of Catalia Herrero, portrayed once again by Zoe Saldana, set several years after the events of the first movie. The sequel delves into themes of legacy, redemption, and the relentless pull of a past riddled with violence. Act 1, the come before the storm. Since avenging her parents' deaths, Catalia has managed to stay under the radar, living quietly in the remote village of San Miguel, deep within the jungles of South America. Under an assumed identity, she sought peace, and the villagers view her as a mysterious but protective figure. Catalia has begun to soften, even building connections with some villagers, including a young girl, Camilla, who looks up to her, but her tranquil life is shattered in a powerful cartel known as the Silver FWNN begins expanding its territory, headed by the ruthless and elusive leader known only as El Alan the Scorpion. The syndicate engages in drug trafficking, arms dealing, and human exploitation. San Miguel is targeted due to its strategic location for trafficking routes and the cartel waste no time making its presence known through violence and terror. Act 2, Catalia resurfaces when Silver Fun enforcers assault San Miguel. Catalia is forced to reveal her skills defending the villagers with lethal precision. Witnessing her unmatched ferocity, the cartel quickly realizes that Catalia is no ordinary resident. Her actions gain no direct re, and El Alan becomes intrigued by rumors of La Tigresa the Tigress defend in a small village. During one skirmish, Catalia meets Nico, a former hacker from a European activist network who has taken refuge in South America after his own run-in with the cartel. Nico has knowledge of the cartel's digital footprint and offers to help her in exchange for protection, though hesitant to work with anyone. Catalia recognizes Nick's skills and degree, seeing an opportunity to disrupt the cell on a larger scale. Act 3, the fight for justice and survival. With Nico's help, Catalia begins targeting the cartel's resources, destroying shipments, intercepting communications, and undermining Silver FS hold on nearby communities. Her actions and Realign, who responds by sending elite assassins to San Miguel. The attacks escalate, becoming personal when the cartel captures and kills Camila, the young girl Catalia had grown attached to. Camus' death pushes Catalia over the edge, unleashing her deepest rage. No longer content to simply disrupt operations, she makes it her mission to hunt down El Al and dismantle Silver Fong entirely. The villagers, though fearful, offer their support, and Anai becomes a loyal ally, risking his life to assist her in every way he can. Act for entering the Lions Den, Catalia learns Ael Elrond Stronghold, a fortress deep in the jungle outfitted with advanced technology, Alec, and heavily guarded with NCO's digital infiltration. Shay discovers the compound's weaknesses and embarks on a deadly mission, navigating treacherous terrain and fending off cartels. Relentless mercenaries Nico provides remote support but is eventually captured, forcing Catalia to accelerate her plan to rescue him and confront El Alan. Directly inside the compound, Catalia encounters a labyrinth of traps and ruthless guards. With her experience and brutal efficiency, she eliminates them one by one, her skills in combat and survival proving unmatched. Finally, she faces El Alran, who is revealed to be a former military strategist with a personal vendetta against anyone who challenges his empire. Act 5, the final showdown. In a heart-pounding confrontation, Catalia and El Alacran engage in a brutal fight. Despite his strength and cunning, he is no match for Catalia's agility and resolve. After a relentless battle, Catalia defeats El Alran, avenging Camila's death and liberating San Miguel and the surrounding communities from the cartel's control. She frees Nico, who, though injured, vows to continue using his skills to expose criminal organizations and fight for justice. Catalia realizes that while she may never escape her violent past, she can at least use her skills to protect the innocent. Epilogue and New Legacy. The final scene show Catalia leaving San Miguel, now a folk hero Amonadillers. She walks away from her temporary home with a sense of purpose, determined to confront other syndicates and criminals that prey on the defenseless. Nico, now a trusted ally, goes underground but promises to stay in touch, hinting at a network of allies who share her mission. Catalia is once again on her own, but has evolved from a lone avenger into a beacon of resistance against injustice, embarking on a journey that might finally bring her peace if only she can survive the path ahead. Production background: Colombiana 22025 builds upon the cult status of the original Colombiana 2011, a film that combined pool-pounding action with a deeply personal revenge plot. Directed by Olivier Megaton and written by Luc Besson and Robert Mark Kamen, the first film brought viewers into the dangerous world of Catalia Rio, a fierce assassin driven by vengeance for her parents' murders. Over the years, the film has gained a dedicated fan base, fueling demand for a sequel that would delve further into Calia's complex character and offer closure or perhaps a new beginning for her story. Director: the reins of Colombiana 2 have been taken up by filmmaker David Leitch, known for his work on action-packed films like John Wick, Atomic Blonde, and Mobs and Shah's Flair. For meticulously choreographed action sequences combined with narrative depth and character exploration makes him a fitting choice to take Coley's journey to new levels. Production studio and writers: produced by Europa Corp and Sony Pictures. The script has been penned by emerging screenwriters known for their work in gritty dramas, focusing on a narrative that emphasizes character development alongside high-stakes action. With a reputed director and dedicated writing team, Colombiana 2 promises to be a worthy successor with strong character, focus, and cinematic appeal. Encore, 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 encore. Encore, 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 encore. Encore, 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 encore. Encore, 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 under encore. Encore, 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 encore. Encore, 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 encore. Encore, 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 encore. Underscore, underscore, encore. Encore, underscore. Plot summary. In Colombiana 2, Cato Resto, played once again by Zoe Saldana, has attempted to leave her violent past behind, seeking solace and a quiet life in the secluded South American village of San Miguel. However, peace is fleeting when a ruthless cartel known as the Silver FWNN, led by the enigmatic Alinda Scorpion, encroaches upon her new home. They unleash terror on the villagers, capturing and killing innocents and forcing Catalia back into action. Catalia is joined by a skilled hacker named Nico, who shares his own vendetta against the cartel, sets out on a path to destroy the syndicate. NCO becomes her tech-savvy ally, helping her disrupt the cartel's network from the inside. Together, they attempt to bring down the powerful criminal empire, facing betrayal, violence, and a fight for survival. The climax sees Catalia confronting El Alrin and his high-security jungle compound, leading to an intense showdown that tests both her physical prowess and emotional resilience. Encore, encore. Encore, 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 underscore, encore. Encore, 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 underscore. Encore, 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 underscore, encore. Encore, encore. Encore casting and performance as Zoe Sun reprises her role as Catalia, bringing a depth of experience in portraying both physical action and emotional vulnerability. SAA's portrayal is expected to delve into the toll of a life spent in shadow, showcasing a blend of fierce determination and subtle moments of inner conflict. Fans of her previous action roles like in Guardians of the Galaxy and Avatar will appreciate her ability to deliver impactful performance, is even in scenes with minimal dialogue. Supporting cast. The supporting cast is carefully chosen to elevate them story. Neek, the hacker ally with a hidden agenda, brings a fresh dynamic to Kulla's character, allowing for a shift from her previously solitary path. Elrin, portrayed by a seasoned actor from a Latin American film background, presents a villain who is both cerebral and ruthless, a fitting nemesis to challenge Catalia at both strategic and physical levels. Underscore, encore. Encore, 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 under, encore. Encore, 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 encore. Encore, 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 under. Encore, 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 encore. Encore themes and tone. Colombiana 2 is not just an action movie, it carries underlying themes of redemption, inner peace, and the price of Vance. The film carefully juxtaposes Kay's violence skills with her longing for a more peaceful existence, giving audience is a deeper look into the toll that constant combat and isolation have taken on her psyche. One, redemption and legacy. The movie dives into Kalia's emotional journey as she grapples with the effects of her vengeance-driven life. Her bond with the villagers, particularly a young girl named Camila, gives her a glimpse into what life could be beyond violence, while her alliance with Nico introduces trust into her world of calculated caution to justice versus revenge. In the sequel, Call's fight transcends personal vendetta and enters the realm of social justice as she strives to protect her new community. This shift offers a refreshing complexity to her character, making her a hero not just for herself, but for others through free sacrifice and survival. The narrative unflinchingly shows the stakes and sacrifices involved, especially when innocent lives are caught in the crossfire. These themes add a sense of realism, grounding the film and making it resonate with audiences beyond the drill of action. Encore, encore. Encore, 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 encore. Encore, encore, encore. Underscore, underscore, underscore. Underscore, underscore, encore, underscore. Encore, underscore, underscore, underscore. Encore, 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 underscore. Encore, 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 encore. 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 Encore, underscore, encore, encore, encore. Underscore critical review prose 1. Engaging storyline. The film's balanced approach to both character development and action ensures that Catalia is a fully fleshed out protagonist appealing to both new viewers and longtime fans. 2. Performance by Salon Sona's portrayal of Catalia brings weight and empathy to the role, making the character's internal struggle deeply relatable. 3. Exceptional action and direction. David Leitch's direction brings a high-quality polished look to them. Action sequences keeping them both stylish and intense. Cons. 1. Potential predictability for audiences familiar with action tropes. Parts of the plot, such as Catalia seeking redemption or a climactic battle against the cartel leader, may feel somewhat formulaic to dark tone. The movie's unrelenting tone of violence and tension may be off-putting for viewers looking for lighter action. Faircore, encore, 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 encore. Encore, 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 encore. Encore. Conclusion. Colombian at 2 is positioned to be a thrilling, thoughtful successor to the original, delivering on both action and character depth. The movie's darker themes, complex characters, and polished action sequences make it a promising film that respects and expands upon its predecessor, honoring the legacy of Catalia Resto while offering something fresh and intense with a strong creative team, a compelling plot, and stellar performances. Colombiana 2 is likely to captivate fans of the original while earning new admirers for its unapologetic exploration of vengeance, justice, and survival. Colombiana 2 in 2025 has not been officially announced or confirmed by the original film's producers or studios. Let's discuss previous parts. Colombiana is a 2011 French-English language action thriller film kitten and produced by Luc Besson and directed by Olivier Megaton. The film stars Zoe Solo with supporting roles by Michael Vaughn, Cliff Curtis, Lenny James, K. Blue, and Jordi Mo. Of the film is about Catalia, a 9-year-old girl in Colombia whose family is killed by a drug lord 15 years later. A grown Catalia seeks her revenge. The film had a generally unfavorable reception from critics, but Sona's performance and action sequences were praised at gross $63.40 million against a $40 million production budget. Plot: in 1992 in Bogota, Colombia, drug baron Don El Cel senses enforcer Marco and a gang of armed men to kill his gang member Fabio Rsto and his family because Fabio has defied him by trying to leave his prolific drug crime activity behind. Fabio gives his 9-year-old daughter Catalia a smart media computer memory card loaded with information on Don Lee's business and tells her it's her passport. He also gives her the address of her uncle Elio in Chicago, Illinois, who will take care of her. Finally, he leaves her with her mother's Catalia orchid necklace after Fabio and his wife Alicia are gunned down. Catalia escapes and seeks asylum at the U.S. Embassy, she is granted passage to the United States. After handing over the memory card to embassy staff, although American officials attempt to transfer her into the foster care system, Catalia ATT tracks down her uncle in Chicago and asks him to train her as a killer. 15 years later, in 2007, a grown Catalia has become an accomplished assassin. Emilia serves as her broker, providing her with contracts with each murder she commits. She leaves her signature, the Catter flower, hoping to one day attract the attention of Dom Lu so she can take her revenge. When Alo finds out about Coley's intentions and that she has been targeting men connected to the Don, he begs her to stop to avoid endangering the lives of his own family. But she admits that she does not care about the risk to his family while she is spending the night with her American boyfriend Danny Delaney. He takes a photo of her sleeping and then shows it to a friend, who then decides to run a background check on Catalia, which alerts the FBI. Meanwhile, FBI agent James Ross is working to identify the killer behind more than 20 unsolved murders, all of which have Catalia orchids left behind. He gets a pin on Kalia's photo from them background check and orders her arrest. But Catalia escapes and reaches out to Alo, only to find that she has indeed caused the brutal slaughter of Alo and his entire family. She confronts Ross at his home and threatens to kill him and his entire family, forcing him to reach out to CIA agent Steve Richard, who she knows is sheltering Don Lu from the law in exchange for cooperation with American authorities. When she threatens to slaughter Richard's family, Richard gives her the Don's location. Lu learns that Catalia is still alive and organizes his men to kill her, but she ambushes them first and wipes out the entire gang, including Marco. Don flees and swears revenge, Catalia having planted her special trained attack dogs in his escape vehicle, orders them to eat the alive. Danny is interrogated by Ross. Catalia calls him from a payphone. They talk briefly before Ross grabs Danny's phone, but Catalia hangs up, leaving town on a bus. Cast Zoe S.A. as Catalia, a contract killer who seeks revenge when her drug-dealing father and mother are murdered by their criminal associates. Jordi Mola as Marco, Don main enforcer and the man who executed Coley's parents while she watched Lenny James's Ross, FBI special agent tasked with investigating Cullis assassinations. Amanda Stenberg as 10-year-old Catalia Kuml as Richard, CIA agent who arranged Don Lee's relocation. In cooperation, Cynthia Adai Robinson as Alicia Kay's mother, who is killed along with her husband Jesse Go as Fabio Kay's father and a drug business criminal. Life, Ophelia Medina as Mama, Emilio's mother Angel Jaika as Pepe, Amelia's father Sam Douglas as Willie, Ward Graham McTavish as head U.S. Marshal, Warren Max Martini as Agent Robert, Williams B. Bonnets as Don Lewis, a Colombian drug lord who ordered the killing of Kay's family, then see deal with the CIA. Michael Vav as Danny Dillon, his boyfriend and artist he knows Catalia as Jennifer Cliff Curtis as A.O. Rero Call is uncle and professional killer who raises and trains her after her parents were killed. Production: the script for Colombiana was based on Matilda, which was originally written by Luc Besson as a sequel to El the Professional after a disagreement with the Go Film Company on how to proceed with the film. Besson and director Olivier Megaton reworked the script into a standalone film. Filming began in August 2010 in locations including Chicago, New Orleans, Mexico, and France. The film was produced by Bess Europa Corp Company, and a script was written by Besson and Robert Mark Kamen. David Martin Jones, in an essay written for Senses of Cinema, stated that the film was likely to have been perceived by audiences to be an American Hollywood production, noting that aping the look of a Hollywood genre film with an honest twist had been used in previous European films. Reception: critical response on the review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes, 28% of 7 critics' reviews are positive, within average rating of 4.9 SL10. The website's consensus read, Zoe Salina has the chops, but she's taken out by erratic and sloppy filmmaking. Metacritic, which uses a weighted average, assigned the film a score of 45 out of 100 based on 22 critics indicating mixed or average reviews. Christy Lammer of the Associated Press reviewed Colombiana, writing that the director of Les Nikita and The Fifth Element serves as co-writer and producer here, but this is very much a spin-off of his branded continuation of the kind of stereotype and gravity defying characters he's made his name on. Colombiana feels more hammy and muscular though, but knowingly so, and that's what makes it solid late summer escapist fun. Betsy Shy of the Los Angeles Times wrote, this B-movie blast of bloody blam blam is the latest chapter in the Luc Besson book of badly bruised lovelies who are better not crossed. What he began in 1990 with Nikita followed with Long Law in 94 and 97's The Fifth Element, the last written with Robert Mark Kamen, who co-wrote Colombiana with Besson. He refines in Colombiana. Claudia PG of USA Today wrote, this is a showy flower of an action film. SA doesn't get much of a chance to emote, but her action skills blossom. Jordan Miner of The Hollywood Reporter said that there are guilty pleasures to be had in this frenzy be, starring Zoe Sa, who gives an acrobatic performance that makes the overcooked material watchable. Controversy: a non-profit group called Poor Colombia criticized the film, saying that it stereotyped Colombia in a negative way. Carlos was president of Poor Colombia, claimed that the film is proof of a total lack of creativity in Hollywood. When asked about the situation in an interview, SA said, shame on them. I don't know. I wish I knew how to address stupid, unintelligent comments, but I don't. I'm not a stupid person. The following year, in an essay published in Senses of Cinema, David Martin Jones focused on a different aspect of the South American character, believing that the film provided a different perspective concerning immigration and international wealth inequality. He notes that a character from the global South wreak havoc on the wealthy and corrupt in the global North, offering a different perspective than is usually seen in a Hollywood blockbuster. Box office: Colombiana grossed $36.7 million domestically, United States and Canada, and $26.80 million in other territories, for a worldwide total of $63.50 million against a budget of $40 million. It opened at number 2 in the first of its 3 consecutive weeks in the top 10 at the domestic box office. Sequel at the 2015 See Europe, when the production house Europa Corp announced upcoming films that mentioned that Colombiana 2 was in development, while Sonar responded to him interviewer her in 2017 that she wouldn't mind reprising her role as Catalia. As of 2024, no such sequel exists. More review author extraordinaire and scholar of violent fiction Matt Funk has recently lamented the loss of mass appeal of crime cinema in 2011. A part of me wants to agree with him, but another part wants to blame Clem the lack of quality of Hollywood's action Blockbusters for this regrettable situation, and the louder part is talking louder to my conscious brain. I don't really care about things blowing up all over my screen if there's no John Lon walking through the wreckage to be there on time to pick up Holly and the kids. I had high hopes that Colombiana wouldn't buy into cheap thrills after seeing the trailer. I always fancy female action movies as they are a nice change of pace from the male angst rid bullet fasts I usually watch. Despite being technically sound, Colombiana did not live up to my expectations at all. Seeing who was behind it now, I wonder why I got my hopes up in the first place. Colombia is an awful place to be a criminal, and Olivier may get tons movie working in bad's drug market is like working public function in the US. You're more likely to be on somebody's payroll than to become Scarface. It's a little racist, but I can deal with that. Catalia Resto Salana learns this the hard way when her parents are murdered by the henchmen of Don Luby Bonnet's back when she was a child. That moment defined her whole existence. She goes on an exile to her Uncle Marco Jordi Moa best place and learns the corpse of being an assassin. By the time she turns 24, she is a stone-cold, highly skilled professional who works for her uncle, but she is devoured by her need for vengeance. All of her life has been building up that moment where she would cross path with Don Leese again. I have two main problems with Colombiana. First of all, Catalia Rayo isn't exactly a female protagonist. As much as she's a male fantasy, she's sexy, athletic, performs killings worthy of Sam Fur's admiration encore without calling back or almost asterisk, and devotes her life to kicking ass and taking names instead. Sando, this movie really messes with my suspension of disbelief. While the action is slick and well filmed, there were many of those wait a minute moments where my good intentions towards Colombiana were seriously challenged. For example, that escape she made from Donald gone through the streets of Bogota, where child Catalia Am and El Denberg look like an Olympic hopeful for the gymnastics team. More than your average privileged 9-year-old. I can believe in 9 years old to be savvy and streetwise, but being actually more savvy and streetwise than seasoned killers that are plot relevant. Asterisk come on its bad end. It's just one example. It's sad and very encore frustrating because Colombiana has its moments, some scenes gripping and beautiful. For example, towards the beginning of the movie, Catalia is going on a job in Mexico where she was to eliminate a fraudulent banker. Type it, one of the best filmed action sequence I've seen in 2011. The way it scripted, the way the tension goes up, it's brilliant. There are a few of those scenes in Colombiana showing that this story had potential. I know I'm asking much of the Olivier Megaton, Luc Bess, and team who has provided us great movies like The Transporter 3, while Best and used to write good movies. The Fifth Element, the Taxi series, the last decent script he wrote was for Taken in 2008. Not keyword here is decent asterisk. I can't really recommend you to watch Colombiana, but if you're caught with it in a social situation, it's a frustrating viewing, but it has its moments. It's technically sound and visually beautiful, but the script is plagued with most issues that have been plaguing Hollywood action scripts since the beginning of the 21st century. Movies like this won't trigger an action SL crime film renaissance. I just needed to get to the core of how this movie troubled me by getting to talk about specific scenes that make no bleeding sense. So pure worried about being spoiled with This movie then don't read any further. The action genre of filmmaking is one of the most critically disliked genres. Of all, I believe it's sometimes well. Over the years, some form of criteria has been assembled as to what makes a good action sequence. It's always made the story to be a problem rather than a friend, and therein lays the biggest problem with Colombiana. What this film is meant to do, it does well for the most part. The film's general glorified, overly meticulously designed, almost impossible assassination sequences are great to watch, and they're fun. You sit in your seat staring at the big screen ahead of you with your face emoting shock as you see tiny little Sun work her way through the smallest of cavities of a building, or using the most mundane of objects as the spin of her assassination scheme. So I find it almost unfair to complain about the things that didn't work in this movie, since it's all the things that never seem to work in 90% of the action films out there. Its logic and story structure is a complete mess. There are so many scenes where characters say things that make almost no sense and do things without much consequence that you can't imagine how they were ignored. Catalia Zoe Salana decides, after seeing her mother and father murdered by whom I can only assume is the big drug kingpin in Colombia, that she wants to become a killer so as to be able to enact revenge. Part of her grand scheme is, since she doesn't know how to find her parents, kill her to smoke them out by marking each of her amazing murders with a message that only she and these men would understand. However, since it's such a peculiar detail, the authorities refuse to release it to the press until 4 years later. Now you would imagine that either the police would use the same logic for why 4 years later they decide to release this information a lot earlier, therefore pushing the story along, or Catalia would realize that this message isn't getting out and do something different. There's a scene where Mellow Cliff Curtis shoots randomly around a school in broad daylight on a whim to prove a point to young Catalia. I find it immensely hilarious how he never has to worry about that police or anyone seemingly staring directly at him as he takes his time to expose his reasoning for why Kalia needs to do things his way. Also, there's a romance ongoing with Catalia and Danny Michael Vaughn that makes almost no sense. We don't see the beginning of it, and it's very obvious that SAA's character is using this man just for sex pretty much. However, it's also obvious that this man wants more, and it seems that this arrangement ID shamble of a relationship and has been going on for a few months at least, due to the way they interact. Who is his friend? It immediately sends a photo of his supposed girlfriend to the DMV for identification without thought. This makes no sense other than a painfully obvious plot point used to get their police closer to Catalia when the talking ends and their bullets start whizzing by. The film is fun enough to truly enjoy. The only problem with that is that when it's time for Catalia to exact or revenge them, action film style changes from this exact science of a killing to a free-for-all brawl that Selena enters into, and immediately due to chaotic film making, the action becomes too hard to decipher that it's almost unbearable when 9-year-old Key's parents are murdered in front of her. She vows to avenge their death and dedicates her life to becoming an expert assassin while watching Colombiana. It becomes increasingly hard to believe that it was written by Luc Besson, the same man who brought us the excellent Leon, the high point in the assassin genre, where that film boasted an intelligent screenplay, strong performances, and genuine tension and thrills. Colombiana is a tiresome revenge thriller devoid of any Of the pleasures of that film, a closer comparison would be taken. Besson joyously OT Liam this vehicle that made up for what it lacked in brains with solid thrills and ridiculous violence, something Colombiana can only dream of achieving. The plot is a simple one. Catalia Amanda Stenberg watches as her parents are murdered in front of her at the age of 9, given instruction by her father beforehand. Catalia flees Colombia and winds up in Chicago with her uncle. Her to is one day impossible to film's most preposterous scene. Catalia tells her uncle she wants to be a killer, to which he pulls out a gun and murders a driver in the middle of a busy street in broad daylight, apparently as a way of illustrating that she should stay in school to become a more efficient kill. Her, of course she does, and we jump forward 15 years to a grown Catalia, Sonnen, now going by the name Jennifer, faking a DUI to get inside a specific jail to slip through some RV and murder an important prisoner staying in one of the cells. She marks the body with a rare work it only found in Colombia, as she has with her previous 22 kills in an attempt to get press attention and draw out the men responsible for her parents' death. What happens from then is a mess of poor acting, silly action scenes, and utterly pointless dialogue. Every single character in this film is so utter one-dimensional that any dialogue they have is there to service the plot and nothing more. The only attempt to flush out any character comes through a horrendous subplot involving Michael Vaugh as Danny Coley, his casual lover who fills the archetypal woman's role of pining after the mysterious, emotionally detached assassin. The scenes between the two are so poorly handled by all involved that they just come across as funny. The turgid love scenes aren't even the worst thing in the film. One terribly directed fight scene trying desperately for Born Steigrip sees Catalia facing off against her arch nemesis with a towel and 2 toothbrushes. There are numerous scenes of the FBI using computers that can seemingly perform miraculous acts of searching and matching data in a split second, which even becomes pivotal to the plot on more than one occasion. The final face-off dare not be spoiled here, but could possibly be the worst climax to a film. Fall time, the last of logic or intelligence would have been quickly forgiven had the film been at least fun. Where Taken succeeded was by not taking itself too seriously, keeping the plot simple and making sure Nissan always had a badass one-liner to hand. Colombian has seemingly aims a lot higher but fails miserably, ending up a paste mess with a lead who really isn't all that likable or interesting. It's kind of hard to write for a woman who at one point smashes her neighbor's face into a table for no apparent reason, then seemingly blows up his apartment, presumably killing him in the process just to escape the FBI. Salana must have thought this was a great idea, a strong female lead, and maybe even the beginning of a franchise. The end result isn't a complete career killer, but is definitely a step backwards. Olivier Megaton, fresh off his English language debut, The Transporter 3, hardly showers himself in glory. Either the film is bathed in the same vaguely green hue that SE seems to have become the go of for stylish thrillers, and the action scenes are so badly cut together it's hard to really tell who's hitting who, and if you even care anyway after witnessing the brutal murder of her parents at the hands of Colombian drug lords. Catola Zoe Salana grows up to become a ruthless assassin bent on revenge. That's the plot of Colombiana in a nutshell, and to be honest, there isn't much more substance than that to the story. At the core, the story is like Leon Light, essentially an empty version of The same plot carried further. Lucky for you, there is some solid ass kicking action to back up what the script by Luc Besson and Robert Mark Command LAX. Colombiana is strongest in the opening. Young Catalia Amanda Stenberg, instead of being the fragile broken child who just saw her parents butchered as a badass, she stabs Marco Jordi, mad boys, to an evil henchman in the hand. Then LA gang of heavily armed cartel enforcers on an epic foot through them. Slums of Budget, who knew 8-year-old girls were so adept at parkour all on her own. She finds her way to Chicago, where her Uncle Amello Cliff Curtis is a medium level crime figure. Catalia is as strong as she needs to be, but also still a child, and with the single-minded focus that only a child has, declares that she is going to be a killer with or without Emilio's help. Resourceful and determined, you never doubt for a second that she'll succeed in her quest. Fast forward 15 years and Catalia has become just what she set out to become: a highly skilled killer with vengeance on her minded. After a couple of nice scenes of her professional prowess, which take every opportunity to strip SAA down to the most minimal amount of clothing possible. However, even when fully clothed, you can pretty much always see her nipple. Seriously, SAS nipples should get their own credit. The pace begins to sag in fact, the middle of the movie is largely forgettable, laughable at points, and is over serious to the point of absurdity. There are a bunch of unnecessary sides, including tangents about an FBI agent, Lenny James, hot on Coley's trail, a vaguely corrupt and generic CIA agent, Callum Blue, and far too many scenes of her making out with her hot painter hump buddy Michael Vaugh, alias in reality everything that doesn't directly revolve around action is probably best ignored, but things always look darkest just before the dawn. Right, and I'll say it one more time. Lucky for you, right as you're about to give up hope, Colombiana gets rad again. And we're talking rocket launchers, hand grenades, and a toe fight. Rat, there isn't much to think about too seriously in Colombiana. It's a simplistic look at culture and trauma, and a story full of character caricatures and stereotypes at its best. However, the film is entertaining by candy, and that's enough for me tonight. There are shark fights, intricate assassinations, lots of things to blow up, and an assortment of interchangeable goons with no larger purpose in life than to become cannon fodder for a hot killer in a bodysuit. Sure, it's cheesy and melodramatic, but what the hell, it's also a good time. I can't help but think that without SAA's presence, Colombian would never grace the multiplexes. This is a kind of action movie that rarely gets a wide theatrical release anymore, unless it happens to be directed by Sylvester Stallone and star a bunch of 80s action icons. Usually films of this nature are relegated to the direct-to-video market and enjoyed only by the hardcore emus who actively seek out genre features. This is the kind of action I grew up on. It's a little bit sexy, a little bit silly, and to be sure there are some moments of blustery overacting in poorly executed American accents, but all in all, Colombiana isn't bad. I think it is also worth noting that a man with the surname Megaton is responsible for directing Colombiana. It takes a certain level of balls to change your name from Olivier Fontana to Olivier Megaton. How do you explain that one to your parents? But that's exactly the type A personality, one full of cockiness and bravado, that I want in charge of my action movies. Well played, Megaton. Well played. The conveyor belt of producer Luc Besson's action movie factory delivers at least one mindless shoot him up or occasionally the yield of dull Titles such as From Paris with Love is broken up by something as entertaining is taken but not often. Colombiana exists as a mid-range action product with violence to spare, reasonable star power, lots of momentum, even more violence and heaps of sex appeal, all tempered for mass consumption by a PG-13 rating. Co-written by Besson and Robert Mark Kamen. The movie was directed by Olivier Megaton Transporter 31 of Besson clan, who has yet to break out the way Pierre Morel District 13 has here. Megaton rushes to restore that deserves comparisons to Bess's own, a professional, after witnessing the murder of her mother and Colombian drug lord hitman father at the hands of competitor Don Luis B. Ben and his goon Marco Jordi Mole. 9-year-old Catalia Amanda Stenberg escapes in a mediocre parkour chase sequence on the rooftops of Bogota. Shay makes her way to Chicago and takes refuge with her uncle emo Cliff Curtis, a gangster who values family. She insists on getting revenge and that Emilio train her to be a killer, and he agrees on the condition that she goes to school. Cut to 15 years later, by which this time Catalia, now played by Avatar star Zoe Saldana, has accumulated a hit list of 20 or more kills, all very bad people and all meant to draw out Don Lees, who has since gone into hiding under CIA protection, a normal wife with her casual boyfriend Danny Michael Vaugh, who until recently she has used for sex. Never seemed feasible, but suddenly Danny wants to talk and Catalia begins to feel something beneath her cold exterior. Oh. Meanwhile, while flavorless FBI Special Agent Ross Linney James is hot on his suspect's trail, but refuses to believe the killer is a woman, because no woman could ever do what this killer has done. Clearly, Agent Ross hasn't seen Bess's Laugh Nikita or The Fifth Element, but he's got to find the killer, because that's what FBI agents do. So he asks the press to distribute her signature, a catty orchid drawn on each victim's chest and black lipstick. When Don Lee sees this, he sends out his thugs to search for Catalia, putting her few dear associates and family members in harm's way. Saldana makes a welcome replacement for Besson's other action heroes, the likes of Jason St. and Jekyll, actors whose scowls are interrupted only by bursts of anger. She's nimble, infiltrating complex security with the SLLY daring of Tom Cruise and Mission Impossible, while she can also unleash hell worthy of Schwarzenegger in the finale's commando-style shootout. But rather than question the morality of her cold-blooded killer, Megaton order SAA to shed a few tears and morally redeems her character through emotion. She is, after all, a woman and therefore subject to movie stereotypes such as sentimentality, but Besson did not choose a female protagonist solely to show a sensitive side, despite a number of sappy scenes involving Coley's family and boyfriend. The movie Sexy Chick with Guns concept reaches its height when the protagonist escapes and by raid with little more than her undergarments and a massive assassin's rifle, the only obvious cliché missing from the overcooked Colombiana is an androgynous female villainess to rival Son. In the 1980s, such a role would have been played by Bridget Neen, though he avoids this bit of formula. There aren't too many other cliché. Megaton, our ridiculous self-appointed moniker, doesn't employ action scenes, adopt that familiar over-edited shaky cam style that has spread like a disease through the majority of today's action movies, and cuts have a man on fire strobe effect that might cause an epileptic seizure. Everything that you expect to happen does, but the result is certainly more watchable than the majority of base and produced actioners and will know out. Provide some mild diversion for action. Junkies Colombiana is a movie that is best enjoyed if you prepare yourself for the unbelievable. It's hard not to start here when within the first 10 minutes of the movie I noticed a handful of things on the screen that I just thought were outright unbelievable. I got the impression that the filmmakers were making this movie for someone who doesn't have much common sense or a grasp on reality or can just forego such things in the aspiration of entertainment. There are scenes in this movie that are so blatantly exaggerated that you can't help but feel borderline insulted by the writers for even conceiving the idea, let alone thinking that an audience will accept any unrealistic scenarios just for the purpose of progressing the story. Let me try to better explain. You know those moments when you watch a movie and you just see a character do something so stupidly counterproductive to their own survival that you just rest your head in your hand until it's over. That's pretty much sums up the entirety of the opening scene of Colombiana. It's one thing to manufacture the progression of the story, but it's another thing to use and write characters as tools while they defy basic logic and common sense. For this purpose, I don't like the use of dumbed down characters just for the sake of story progression, and I think it's a piss poor way and excuse to progress the story of a movie. Colombiana does have some redeeming qualities, as there were a few times I would have believed that I was watching a movie created by a young and lesser experienced Michael Bay, with all the flash at candy and explosions to complement the movie in the usual Bay way. Colombiana tries to mimic the action of some of the best revenge movies of our time, and at times actually pulls this off pretty well, but there are times when you notice that there's room for improvement. There are a few scenes where you can truly become a by the action and cinematography in front of you and how the movie progresses, and there are times when this movie hints at having a level of wit and intelligence that captures your attention in such a way that the movie truly picks up and hints at better things to come. You follow along with Catala as she scales buildings, ventilation systems, creeps down hallways in a sexy and feline fashion that delivers a cool mix of DC's Catwoman and Metal Gear Solid Snake. Her intelligence in the art of espionage and her tactics really add to a level of entertainment with the entire movie, as you see her systematically and intelligently take on or assassinated individual in the most ludicrously guarded places. You'll definitely have a few minute mark to tune in for other perverts. Overall, the movie is a mindless action platform to introduce and test Zoe Saldana as a draw and leading woman. She's definitely shows that she's capable of both, despite the inherent weaknesses throughout the film, without much fault of her own, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing her continue to establish herself as a leading woman in Sex Symbol. The movie had me upset at the thought that I watched this in the theater and would recommend that others instead wait for a home release, but overall this movie is definitely worth a viewing at least once. The Olivier Megaton directed Colombiana may not be the brainiest of actioners, but one of the merits of producer Luc Besson's latest brainchild is that fanboys worldwide will come away with a scrap of horticultural knowledge as well as a pretty good timed, sexy, vengeful contract. Killer Catalia, a feline Zoe Saldana, is named after a Colombian orchid species, signing her victims with a lipstick drawing of her floral namesake. Solidly produced, if slightly generic English Language pick should do mid-range biz in France were about July 27th and okay. Number stateside where it goes out. August 26th rather than adopting a tired flashback heavy approach Megaton and screenwriters Besson and regular collaborator Robert Mark Kamen. Let Coley's childhood trauma play out up front in an audacious half-hour prologue. Set in 1992 budget, still a little girl Catalia. Amanda Stenberg witnesses the assassination of her next off by crime boss Don Luis B. Bonnets and his vicious right-hand man Marco Jordi Mola Catalia decides she wants to become a killer when she grows up so she can properly exact revenge on Louise Marco and their gang 15 years later, played by S.A.A. She's a pretty impressive contract killer working for her Chicago-based Uncle Alo Cliff Curtis I. Assignment. Odds get to see her and isn't elaborately staged hit inside a prison. An intricately staged and executed 10-minute plus set piece that reps one of the Pix 2 action highlights. The second is a mano-mano fight in a Henda bathroom and intentionally messy sequence that injects a welcome dose of reality and real danger into the proceeding, something lacking in the film's more bombastic and generic shootouts and explosions. Much of the viewer's investment will depend on his or her concern for key is plight, and this is where SAA's contribution is key. Despite being a ruthless killer with a killer bob and a predilection for skimpy, tight-fitting apparel costume designer, Olivier Barrett seems to have taken a K from the Avatar Thesp's motion sea capture bodysuit. She not only exudes sexiness but also generates a certain amount of sympathy. Selden's handful of scenes with her artist BF Michael Vaugh, who has no clue what she does for a living, help humanize the otherwise solitary killing machine, and 310 confrontations in a schoolyard and a library with a mellow and during a home visit with the FBI agent on her tail. Lenny James nicely Jew test plotting and characterization between action setups. Like all action picks from Bess's Europa Corp, including Helmer Megaton's The Transporter 3 Colombiana, is slickly assembled locations including Mexico, the US, and France, and Patrick Dura production design are expertly showcased in our Vlora SU appled. Widescreen lensing, editing, and score are unobtrusive, the work of stunt coordinator Michelle Julian, taking the Transporter films, and fight choreographer Alan Figlar. The Bourne Identity Largo Winch is pro but has a greatest hits feel rather than its own identity. Remember, you read it here first. A Star is Born. Amanda Stenberg steals the entire film, which isn't bad considering she's only 10 years old and is on screen for only the opening 15 minutes or so. She plays the lead, Catalia, who is a 99-year-old, witnesses her parents' murders by Marco Jordi Moa, evil henchman of evil drug lord Don Luis B. Bonds, but Mom and Pop had it coming anyway, because every Colombian in this film is a drug dealer and slore killer and slasher gangster of some kind. Not only does Amanda display genuine terror, I wonder how director Olivier Megaton got her to do that. Threatened to put a puppy in a blender, use cute little baby puppy doggy Amandla. You see how I put in the how you say blender, but she's handy with a hunting knife too, putting her mark on Marco before going on a rooftop parkour run for her life, dodging bullets, a motorbike, a parkouring pursuer, and various SUVs. It's all breathtaking stuff that makes you read the end crawl really carefully to see if any little girls were harmed in the making of this movie. Catalia then makes her way to the U.S. Embassy, and a nice touch, this pukes up a Micro SD card, a parting gift from Daddy, which contains some kind of secret information that gets her instant citizenship and is flown to the States. She then dodges her handler and makes her way to Chicago and Uncle Alo. Cliff Curtis, who being Colombian is also some kind of gangster. We know this because we're introduced to him beating some guy to a pulpin to contain her back in the safe and loving arms of family. Catalia decides she wants to be a professional killer and waste everyone who had anything to do with them deaths of her parents. That'll be all of Colombia then, but first she has to go school, and after bribing the principal to overlook Kia's late start and presumed missing grades, Uncle Amello convinces her education is the best way by pulling a gun in broad daylight and shooting a passing car full of holes and causing it to crash, since nobody witnesses anything. He is able to calmly put it away and explain that whilst anyone can do that and presumably not get caught ever, the 3RS will give her better a shot in life. So far so brilliant, but then we fast forward 15 years and get Zosana, whose vehicle this is. It's not that MSAA doesn't look good, especially after her appearance at the Avatar press conference in Berlin, where she appeared to be promoting anorexia as a fashion statement. Nor is it her athleticism, but in what is a standard Luke Bess in Olivia Megaton, crazy name, crazy guy mayhem movie, she is called upon to act. It's not only out of place, but her gamut runs all the way from A to not quite B. Instead of a 95-minute stem up, we also get a completely unconvincing subplot love affair involving her and artist Danny Delaney, Michael Vaugh. And is it just me, or do all his paintings feature penises in some shape or form? He knows nothing about her, and certainly not that she's a serial killer with 22, not just to her credit only. Colombians of course, because they all have it coming on behalf of Uncle Alo. This results in the film being at least quarter of an hour longer than it needs, and breaking the action when it needs to keep roaring. Liam N didn't need any kind of emotional claptrap and Taken. So why here? So what if Catalia is tortured, damaged, etc.? Do we care? No. This is essentially a cartoon film with life actors. Of course, Cattle is really after Marco and Don Luis, them having been conveniently relocated to the U.S. by the CIA, ostensibly because Don Lu is an informant, but allowed to carry on being major drug dealers. Just work with me here, okay? Like I say, this is a cartoon at heart, so to draw him out, she works her way through his people, drawing a large orchid on the bodies of her victims. It looks like 5 penises joined up, by the way, replicating a necklace he gave to her father before ordering him wasted, and which he gave to her before being wasted. Donnelly's knows what that means. The orchid that is not the penises. Meantime, FBI agent James Ross Lenny James is on call's tail for earlier smuggling herself into a high-security jail and taking out a really nasty piece of column work thanks to a helpful orchid recognizing cleaner in an audible groan inducing moment, and that penis drawing artist guy of hers. The cops and feds get a solid lead on her QA Leonic shootout and chase through her apartment block, from which she match escapes. Not that Don Lu hasn't been busy either. He's taken out Uncle Alo and the latter's mother. This gives Miss Sun another chance to act, which she seizes with both hands and tosses out the window. I'm sorry, she can't. She really can't do it. In the hands of AAL actors such as Angelina Jolie or waiting for Anda Stenberg to have gone rough puberty, these extra scenes would have worked and added some depth to them character, but Sonic can't carry it. Just paint her blue and have done with it fair Chris AES. Catalia now goes on her merry way finally, tracking down Don Luis by a threatening Agent Ross who leads her to the CIA handler who, prompted by a bullet through the window, spills Don Lu whereabouts. The rest of this by the numbers going through the motions film is her taking out Don Lu hired help who, unlike her, are not bullet or bomb proof, until it's time to deal with Marco using mostly a handle, and finally Don Luis using 2 dogs that have been trained to eat on command. Pretty cool, but sadly we don't get to see it. Not that Colombiana is bad, but nor is it particularly interesting. It's all rather rude, like an overtired and bored hooker giving yet another hand job. Nobody apart from the amazing Amanda Stenberg then. Those technicians, extras, and stunt men hoping to get their next gig is really giving of their best, and Zoe Saldana, despite her clearly visible efforts and exertions and innate hotness, is out of her depth, handicapped by her limited acting ability in a script that unfairly calls on her to show some. Colombiana 2 in 2025 has not been officially announced or confirmed by the original film's producers or studios. Colombiana 2225 brings back the fierce Catalia Resto, portrayed by Zoe Saldana, on another journey of vengeance and justice following the events of the first film, where Catalia took down the men responsible for her parents' deaths. She now faces an even more dangerous challenge, a deadly syndicate at that threatens to destroy everything she holds dear. Plot overview: the story begins with Catalia trying to lead a quieter life, having partially escaped the violent shadows of her past. She's found a small semblance of peace, living under identity in a remote village in South America. However, rumors of a powerful crime syndicate known as the Silver FWN begin spreading. The syndicate, notorious for trafficking and large-scale corruption, has a reputation for wiping out entire communities that resist them. When the Silver Fang arrives in Calia's village, its enforcers inadvertently bring her back into a world she was hoping to leave behind. Kay's conflict: the Silver Fam quickly realizes they've made a grave mistake in provoking Kat, as she is once again drawn into a spiral of vengeance. The villagers rally around her as she becomes their guardian angel and protector, but Catalia realizes this fight isn't just about one village, it's about something far larger than Silver Fang has ties with corrupt politicians, international drug trafficking, and even some of her old enemies who have resurfaced to hunt her down. New characters and allies: Catalia encounters a skilled hacker, Nico, who was once a part of an underground cyber group before being forced into hiding after a run-in with the syndicate. Together they work to expose the syndicate's activities and weaken its network. Nico brings in an additional level of danger, but also emotional complexity, as he begins to see Catalia as more than just a skilled assassin, and Catalia's struggle between vulnerability and survival becomes a key narrative point. Rising 10 Ion as Catalia and Nico move deeper into dismantling the syndicate. They face betrayal, loss, and increasingly lethal confrontations. Kay's dark past is constantly referenced, testing her resilience as she confronts her own violence tendencies. This is not just a battle against enemies, but against her inner demons, particularly when the syndicate's head, a man known as Eline, begins targeting innocent people close to her, forcing Catalia into a corner where no one is safe. Climactic Showdown, the film's climax, brings Catalia face to face with El Auron in an intense showdown at the syndicate's high-tech isolated compound deep in the jungle. Here Catalia has to fight not only to save herself and those she's come to care about, but also to find some form of redemption. The fight is raw, unforgiving, and shows her full capabilities as she takes down the Syndicate's most elite guards battling for justice and closure. Ending the film ends with Catalia once again alone, but at peace, knowing she has avenged those who suffered at the hands of the Silver FWN. Neek returns to his underground network with a promise that he'll be there if she ever needs him. Catalia, with scars both visible and hidden, walks into the sunset, symbolizing her endless fight for justice and the price of survival. Overall, Tom, the sequel, maintains the gritty, high-stake action and intense emotional stakes of the original, with a more in-depth exploration of Catalia's psyche. Colombiana 2 promises to deliver heart-pounding action while diving into questions of loyalty, vengeance, and the cost of a life lived in shadows. Plot for Colombiana 2 2025. Colombiana 2 takes us back into the ruthless, high-octane world of Catalia Herrero, portrayed once again by Zoe Sas. Set several years after the events of the first movie, the sequel delves into themes of legacy, redemption, and the relentless pull of a past riddled with violence. Act 1, the calm before the storm. Since avenging her parents' deaths, Catalia has managed to stay under the radar, living quietly in the remote village of San Miguel, deep within the jungles of South America. Under him assumed identity, she sought peace, and the villagers view her as a mysterious but protective figure. Natalia has begun to soften, even building connections with some villagers, including a young girl, Camila, who looks up to her, but her tranquil life is shattered in a powerful cell known as the Silver Foam begins expanding it territory, headed by the Roof, and elusive leader known only as El Alrin, the Scorpion. The Syndicate engages in drug trafficking, arms dealing, and human exploitation. San Miguel is that Catalia is no ordinary resident. Her actions gain notoriety, and El Ellen becomes intrigued by rumors of law. Tigresa, the TG's defending a small village. During one skirmish, Catalia meets Nico, a former hacker from a European activist network who has taken refuge in South America after his own run-in with the cartel. Nick has knowledge of the cartel's digital footprint and offers to help her in exchange for protection, though hesitant to work with anyone. Catalia recognizes NCO's skills and agrees, seeing an opportunity to disrupt the cartel on a large SC. Act 3, the fight for justice and survival. With NCO's help, Catalia begins targeting the cartel's resources, destroying shipments, intercepting communications, and undermining Silver Fong's hold on nearby communities. Her actions enrage El Alacran, who responds by sending elite assassins to San Miguel. The attacks escalate, becoming personal when the cartel captures and kills Camila, the young girl Catalia had grown attached to. Camila's death pushes Catalia over the edge, unleashing her deepest rage. No longer content to simply disrupt operations, she makes it her mission to hunt down Eline and dismantle Silver Fong entirely. The villagers, though fearful, offer their support, and Nico becomes a loyal ally, risking his life to assist her in every way he can. Act 4. Entering the Lion's Den, Catalia learns AEL Alran stronghold, a fortress deep in the jungle, outfitted with advanced technology and heavily guarded. With N's digital infiltration, she discovers the compound's weaknesses and embarks on a deadly mission, navigating treacherous terrain and fending off the cartel's Relentless mercenaries Nico provides remote support but is eventually captured, forcing Catalia to accelerate her plan to rescue him and confront Ellen. Directly inside the compound, Catalia encounters a labyrinth of traps and ruthless guards. With her experience and brutal efficiency, she eliminates them one by one, her skills in combat and survival proving unmatched. Finally, she faces Alrin, who is revealed to be a former military strategist with a personal vendetta against anyone who challenges his empire. Act 5, the final showdown. In a heart-pounding